Good evening, everybody. So today we are going to discuss past year questions of Odd One Out, particularly from the year 2024. All slots 1, 2, and 3. Good evening, everybody. So today, all right, I'll share the presentation first. All right. I believe the presentation is visible to each one of you now. So CAT 2024 past year questions. Odd one out of context, it's the same type, it's the same question. Some people call it odd one out, some people call it out of context. It's exactly the same thing, right? Now, it is very important for us to understand and look at the directions of the questions. 5 jumbled up sentences labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 related to a topic are given below. 4 of them can be put together to form a coherent paragraph. Identify the odd sentence and key in the number of that sentence as your answer. Now, there are 2 things that one must understand and remember, especially if you are a student who is appearing for the CAT exam for the first time. Remember that if you're appearing for the exam for the first time, this is a theta question, which is typed in the answer. One good part is there is no negative marking with the theta question. Number 2, please remember the moment you read 4 of them can be put together to form a coherent paragraph. Don't jump and decide कि ये parajumble का question होगा. No, a lot of students have done this mistake in the past. They have come back to me after the exam and told me, ma'am, हमारे सारे questions गलत हो गए. Read the question intently. If it says make a paragraph, then only make a paragraph. The last statement will differentiate कि ये odd one out का sentence है या ये parajumble का question है. When it says identify the odd sentence, it means you just have to punch in one number. That one number would be either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. While if it is a parajumble question, you will have to punch in the entire sequence. All right. Please read the question's direction very, very carefully. Don't jump to, without reading, you decide that, oh, this is this question. No, read it carefully. Because ये हर साल होता है. सारे questions ऊपर नीचे हो जाते हैं. बीच में RC भी हो जाता है. जब हम पढ़ते हैं एग्जाम के प्रेशर में, जल्दबाजी में, students do not read the whole question and they end up marking what has not been asked. So be careful about it. All right. Let's move to the first question. Let's read the question and understand question कह क्या रहा है. Urbanites also have more and better options for getting around. Uber is ubiquitous. Ubiquitous means present everywhere. Easy to rent, ductless bicycles are spreading. Battery-operated scooters will be next. The second sentence is, when more people use buses or trains, the service usually improves because public transport agencies run more buses and trains. The next one, sentence 3 says, worsening services on public transport, terrorist attacks in some urban metros, and a rise in fares have been blamed for this trend. It seems more likely that public transport is being squeezed structurally as people's need to travel is diminishing as a result of smartphones, video conferencing, online shopping, and so on. There has been a puzzling decline in the use of urban public transport in many countries in the West, despite the growth in urban populations and rising employment. Now, out of all these sentences, एक चीज बहुत commonly हमें समझ में आई that yes, this paragraph is actually talking about number one, public transport, and it is trying to figure out why is the number going down, people opting for public transport, that number is going down even though the population is on a growth, right? So now look at sentence number 5. Sentence number 5 beautifully, sentence number 5, which is here, it introduces the issue, which is what? Which is a puzzling decline. So sentence 5 introduces the issue of decline in public transport despite growing urban population and employment, right? So there is a puzzling decline. This is the introduction. यहां से हमने इंट्रोड्यूस करा, हम इस प्रॉब्लम का सोल्यूशन ढूंढ रहे हैं, हम इस प्रॉब्लम का शायद रूट कॉज ढूंढ रहे हैं, पता नहीं, अभी ट्रैक करेंगे, बट दिस इज द इंट्रोडक्शन, राइट? नाउ फ्रॉम हियर sentence 3 then explains, which says worsening services on public transport, terrorist attacks in some urban metros, and a rise in fares have been blamed for this trend. Now look at the link. This makes a mandatory pair. This trend. Which trend? The trend of decline. The trend of decline. So ask yourself this trend. This is a pronoun. Please use noun pronoun antecedent approach and understand which trend are we talking about. We are talking about the trend of decline. The decline in use of public transport. तो उसने पहला बताया कि puzzling है काफी, और उसके बाद उसने बताया कि causes क्या क्या हो सकते हैं. उसने causes यहाँ पे सेंटेंस नंबर 3 में ट्रेस करे. वर्सनिंग सर्विस है, टेररिस्ट अटैक्स हैं, हुए हैं कई बार, राइट, और फेयर्स भी राइस पर हैं. सो उसके ऑथर के हिसाब से दिस हैज टू बी ब्लेम्ड फॉर दिस ट्रेंड, right? Now sentence 4 adds a kind of explanation stating that public transport is being squeezed as people travel less due to technology. So let's read sentence 4. It seems more likely that public transport, see again we are talking about public transport, is being squeezed structurally as people's need to travel is diminishing. जरूरत भी कम हो गई है लोगों की ट्रैवल करने की. क्यों? Because now people have smartphones, वो वर्क फ्रॉम होम कर रहे हैं, वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग हो रही है, तो जिस चीज के लिए हमें 2-2 घंटे ट्रैवल करके जाना पड़ रहा था, उस चीज को हम वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग पे कर ले रहे हैं. एंड ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग भी. सो अब बहुत कम लोग अब शॉपिंग पे जाते हैं. पॉसिबली इज द reason that the author is trying to trace out, right? So we have number 5, then we have number 3, then we have number 4, and these are all possibilities that at this point of time we are making, right? And then comes to sentence number 1. We are talking about urban population, so it talks about urbanites. Who are urbanites? The urban population. It says urbanites also. Look at the word also, which means it is going on and gives us more information. It provides more, sentence number 1 provides more detail about the alternative to public transport, which are contributing to a decline in usage of public transport. So it says urbanites also have more and better options for getting around. What are they? Uber. Look over here. Uber is ubiquitous, which means it's everywhere. Then easy to rent dockless bikes are spreading, and battery powered scooters will be next, right? All these sentences are giving an explanation. Sentence number 3, 4 and 1. All these sentences are giving an explanation to this puzzling decline that has been talked about in sentence number 5. Now let's read sentence number 2. When more people use buses or trains, the service usually improves because public transport agencies run more buses and trains. Now, what happens in sentence number 2 is, sentence 2 talks about how people using buses and trains improves the service. But this idea is not directly relevant to the conversation that we are having in this paragraph. Our conversation focuses on the decline of public transport and its usage, right? कि लोग कम से कम क्यों यूज कर रहे हैं, क्या रीजन है. Sentence number 2 shifts the focus towards an increase in usage and improving services, which actually is contradicting the entire theme of the paragraph. And because sentence number 2 doesn't go with the relevant theme of the paragraph, sentence number 2 has to be the odd one out. Let's check our answer. Okay, sentence 2 is the odd one out. I believe you're able to understand the question well now. If you have any doubts, please feel free to message in the chat box. Let's read the next question. Question number 2. Animals have an interest. Animals have an interest in fulfilling their basic needs, but also in avoiding suffering. And thus, we ought to extend moral consideration. Okay. So this sentence talks about animals, an interest in fulfilling their basic needs and moral consideration. Okay. The next sentence says, Singer viewed himself as utilitarian and presents a direct moral theory concerning animal rights. Okay, we are talking about animal rights here, and this person called Singer. So because we have the name in the short form, we will find a sentence where we will refer to this guy with his full name, right? I'll read the sentence again. Singer viewed himself as a utilitarian and presents a direct moral theory concerning animal rights in contrast to indirect positions such as welfarist views. Okay, guys, this is nothing. This is a misprint. Please ignore this. Sentence 3 says, he argued for extending moral consideration to animals because similar to humans, animals have certain significant interest. Okay, similar to humans. The event that publicly announced animal rights as legitimate issue within contemporary philosophy was Peter Singer's Animal Liberation text in 1975. Here we have the guy. We have full name. Remember, I taught you in the class and we talked about the approach where I told you that if a name is incomplete, or if a person is using just one of the sentences is using just the surname, we have to find the entire name. Look at the abbreviation approach and you would remember ki abbreviation approach kya bolti hai. We have done this in detail in the class. As such, we ought to view their interests alongside and equal to human interests, which result in humans having direct moral duties towards animals. Okay. Results in humans having direct moral duties towards animal. Now, मोटे तौर पे we understand ये actually paragraph concern कर रहा है how humans and animal rights are theorized, how they're related to each other, और इन दोनों के significant interest क्या है. This is what it is talking about. And certainly this paragraph has to begin with sentence number 4, which introduces this guy called Peter Singer. So sentence number 4 will and should begin the sequence. So sentence 4 says the event that publicly announced animal rights as a legitimate issue within contemporary philosophy was Peter Singer's Animal Liberation text in 1975. Now, what is sentence number 4 doing? Sentence 4 is introducing a historical significance of Peter Singer's Animal Liberation, which sets the stage for discussion of what? Of animal rights in contemporary philosophy. ये देखो यहाँ लिखा है, मैं नहीं बोल रही हूँ, ये यहाँ लिखा हुआ है, animal rights in contemporary philosophy. right? So sentence number 4 introduces. Now from here, because we have spoken about Peter Singer, from here we go to sentence number 2. Dekho, from Peter Singer, we go to sentence number 2, which is Singer viewed himself as a utilitarian and presents a direct moral theory concerning animal rights in contrast to indirect positions such as welfarist views. So, what is sentence number 2 doing? Sentence number 2 expands on Singer's philosophy. It explains his utilitarian view and how it contrasts with other indirect moral views on animal rights. कहाँ लिखा है contrast? ये लिखा है in contrast to indirect positions such as welfarist views. Okay, then comes sentence number 3. क्यों? अभी भी हम उसी बंदे के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. कौन है वो? सिंगर. He argued. देखो यहां से आया हमारा pronoun. He argued. Apply the noun pronoun antecedent approach. So abbreviation approach and then noun pronoun antecedent approach. He argued for extending moral considerations to animals because similar to humans, animals have certain significant interests. Sentence 3 goes on to explain the core of Singer's argument. क्या कहना चाह रहा है वो? That, what is that? What is the core? That animals, like humans, have significant interests and deserve moral considerations. As in, you cannot beat them up, you cannot keep them hungry, you cannot keep them tied up, right? So, he goes on to explain the core argument, which sentence number 3. And then now look at sentence number 5. Look at sentence number 5. Sentence number 5 says, as such, we ought to view their interest. Who there, guys? Ask yourself, who there? Animals. किसके लिए बात करी है ये? Animals के लिए. We ought to view their interests alongside and equal to human interests, which results in humans having direct moral duties towards animals. So 4, 2, 5, 3. What is sentence number 5 doing? Sentence number 5 concludes Singer's argument by stating that humans should treat animal interest equally to human interest. मतलब जितने important human interest है उतना ही important है animal rights, leading to a moral duty towards animals. Now, why have we eliminated option 1? What is the problem with option 1? Let's check. So, sentence number 1 is odd one out because it does not focus on Peter Singer's view on animal rights and the moral obligations that humans have towards animals, which is the main theme of the paragraph. First, padho, animals have an interest in fulfilling their basic needs, but also in avoiding suffering, and thus we ought to extend moral consideration. यहाँ पे सिर्फ animals की बात हो रही है, animal rights की बात नहीं हो रही है, humans की moral duties towards animals की बारे में भी बात नहीं हो रही है. And therefore, sentence number 1 is an odd one out. Let's check our answer. Yes, sentence 1 is the odd sentence. I hope you have understood the reason. The theme of the passage is animal rights and moral obligations that humans have towards animal. This is the basic theme of the paragraph. And the correct sequence would be 4, 2, 3, 5. Okay, let's move to the next question. So question 3 says, the first sentence says, no known real researcher of human behavior would say that gender is all nature or all nurture. Okay, तो क्या क्या वर्ड्स हमें यहाँ पर मिल गए हैं? हमें वर्ड्स मिल गए हैं रिसर्चर, ह्यूमन बिहेवियर, हमें वर्ड मिल गया है यहाँ जेंडर. आगे पढ़ते हैं. द एविडेंस फॉर अ बायोलॉजिकल बेसिस for gender certainly doesn't mean we should be complacent in the face of sexism. What does the word complacent mean? Complacent means become easy about it. Complacent means not bothered about it, right? So when after COVID wave 1, लोग complacent हो गए, लोगों ने hand wash करना बंद कर दिया, mask लगाना बंद कर दिया, and that's when the second wave happened, which was stronger than the first wave. So this is what the word complacent means. Okay. Sentence number 3 says, many people are uncomfortable with the idea that gender is not purely a social construct. Sentence 4 says, despite this empirical truth, we'll find out what is the truth. Despite this empirical truth, researchers who study the biological basis of gender often face political pushback. रिसर्चर के बारे में बात हुई है. देखो, हमने ऊपर भी रिसर्चर वर्ड अंडरलाइन किया था और हमने यहाँ बात करी है बायोलॉजिकल बेसिस की. ठीक है. There is a political preference for gender to be only guys, there's a misprint. This word is reflection. REFL. This is FLETION. To be only a reflection of social factors and so entirely malleable. Malleable is like, beaten into any shape and size. उस चीज को हम malleable बोलते हैं. Now, out of all these sentences, sentence number 1 introduces the debate. What is the debate? The debate is about gender being influenced by both biological and social factors. Sentence number 1 sets the tone for the paragraph. It addresses the complexity of gender. पढ़ते हैं फिर से. Sentence 1. No known real researcher of human behavior would say that gender is all nature or nurture. Right? So this sets the tone. It sets the complexity of gender कि किस नजरिए से जेंडर को देखा जाता है या उस पर रिसर्च होती है. Then comes sentence number 4. Sentence 4 says, despite this empirical truth. What is the truth that we are talking about? The truth is this. क्या? That gender is all nature or all nurture. इस truth के बारे में बात हो रही है यहाँ से यहाँ तक. So sentence 4, follows logically from sentence 1 because it's talking about this empirical truth. And after introducing the complexity of gender in sentence number 1, it suggests that even with the acknowledgement of both nature and nurture, researchers studying gender's biological basis still face political pushback. What is a pushback? A pushback is a challenge. I repeat, I'll explain this connection once again. Why will sentence 4 come after sentence number 1? And I'll write the sentences over here, 4, and then we say 1. Why would sentence 4 come after sentence number 1? I'm sorry, I've written 4 first and it's 1 and then 4. So now understand, please focus that in sentence number 1, it introduces the complexity of gender. After introducing the complexity of gender, sentence number 4 suggests that even with the acknowledgement of both nature and nurture, researchers studying gender's biological basis still face political challenges. देखो, despite this empirical truth, researchers, यहाँ पे भी researchers की बात हुई है, thought idea continues. Thought consistency, thought flow, check करो. Researchers who study biological basis of gender often face political pushback. And then comes sentence number 3, which says, जो 4 में दिया है उसी का और build-up है. Many people are uncomfortable with the idea that gender is not purely a social construct. Sentence number 3 kind of develops on sentence number 4, where it highlights why researchers studying the biological aspect of gender face resistance. So sentence number 3 tells us the reason कि उनको पॉलिटिकल पुशबैक, रिसर्चर्स को पॉलिटिकल पुशबैक मिलता है. क्यों मिलता है? ये 3 में दिया है. 3 उसका रीजन आउट दे रहा है. रीजन ऑफ व्हाट? पॉलिटिकल पुशबैक. यहां से यहां आया. क्या है रीजन? मेनी पीपल आर अनकंफर्टेबल विद द आइडिया दैट जेंडर इज नॉट प्योरली अ सोशल construct. The public discomfort with viewing gender as more than just a social construct is explained. Right? Now, in sentence number 5, sentence number 5 says there's a political preference. देखो हम अभी भी उस political pushback की बात कर रहे हैं, हम social construct की बात कर रहे हैं. Look at the beautiful thought consistency in this paragraph. It's a sentence number 5 says there's a political preference for gender to be only a reflection of social factors and so entirely malleable. Sentence number 5 connects to sentence number 3 by elaborating on the politics as purely a social construct, reinforcing the challenge faced by researchers, supporting for a more nuanced view of gender, right? So the sequence would be 1, 4, 3, 5. Now what do we have? What is left? What is left is sentence number 2. The evidence for a biological basis for gender certainly doesn't mean should be complacent in the face of sexism. Now, why is 2 odd one out over here? Sentence number 2 does not fit in the context. First of all, it doesn't fit in the theme of the paragraph. The rest of the sentences are focused on the complexities of gender as a mix of nature and nurture and the political and societal, challenges and resistance that researchers face. Sentence 2, which is the odd one out, it shifts the focus to sexism, which when related to gender does not directly, tie into all the sentences that discuss nature and nurture in sentence number 1. And obviously, it doesn't also fit into the political resistance and the biological explanation that has been given in sentence number 4, 3, and 5. And hence, sentence number 2 is odd one out. If you go back, you would realize that sentence number 1 talks about researcher, right? No known real researcher. And then it goes on, sentence number 4, again talking about researchers. This empirical truth, वो truth क्या है, वो sentence 1 में दिया है, that gender is all nature or all nurture. Sentence number 3, 4 पे elaborate कर रहा है, reason out कर रहा है कि pushback क्यों मिलता है researchers को, right? और sentence number 5 उसी को refer कर रहा है, उसी बात को और explain कर रहा है, उसी बात को और elaborate कर रहा है कि political preferences क्या है. And hence, the coherent paragraph would be 1, 4, 3, 5. The answer to this question is sentence number 2. Let's check. Yes, sentence 2 is the odd one out. All right. Let's go to the next one. The UK is a world leader in developing cultivated meat and the approval of a cultivated pet food in an important milestone. Is an important milestone. Sorry. The UK is a world leader in developing cultivated meat. So what are we talking about? We're talking about cultivated meat and the approval of cultivated pet food is an important milestone. Okay. If we are to realize the full potential benefits, I don't know, my laptop has done something. It has just removed all F letters from all my slides. Benefits. If we are to realize the full potential benefits of cultivated meat, again, we're talking about cultivated meat, the government must invest in research and infrastructure. The first UK applications for cultivated meat produced humans remain under assessment. Okay, we are again talking about cultivated meat here. For humans remain under assessment with the Food Standards Agency. Sentence 4 says the previous UK government had been looking at fast tracking the approval of cultivated meat for human consumption. Okay, human consumption के बारे में बात हो रही है. अभी तक हम सिर्फ cultivated meat के बारे में बात कर रहे थे. Sentence number 5 says it underscores the potential for new innovation to help reduce the negative impacts of intensive animal agriculture. Okay. Now, out of all these sentences, and 5, if you notice, focus, all of these sentences focus on the current state and the future prospects of cultivated meat in UK. Except in sentence number 5, which doesn't particularly talk about UK, and it talks about intensive animal agriculture. 3 and 5 aspect of cultivated meat, like I told you. It talks about leadership in developing cultivated meat. It talks about regulatory assessments. It talks about the importance of government research and investment, or rather government investment in research that needs to be done, right? In sentence number 2, when it says government must invest in research and infrastructure. Now, if you focus on sentence number 4, like I said, and I mentioned this, कि sentence for human consumption के बारे में बात कर रहा है, जो थोड़ा सा actually में odd लग रहा है. Sentence 4, however, refers to the previous UK government's efforts to fast-track approval of cultivated meat, which is disconnected from other sentences, as the focus shifts to a past action rather than the current development or future needs in the industry. Tense देखो क्या है यहाँ पर? Had been looking. Had been looking. Sentence 1 देखो, the UK is a world leader in developing cultivated meat, and the approval of a cultivated pet food is an important milestone. Okay, it's talking about present. If we are to realize the full potential benefits of cultivated meat, the government must invest in research and infrastructure. All right, we are talking about the future aspects. The first UK applications for cultivated meat produced for humans remain under assessment with the food standard safety. Okay, we're still talking about the present and what would happen in the future. And sentence number 5, it underscores the potential for new innovation to help reduce the negative impacts of intensive animal agriculture. While sentence number 1, 2, 3, and 5 talk about the present and the future, it is only and only sentence number 4 that talks about the past. Previous UK government क्या कर रहा था. Also, again, it is particularly talking about human consumption, cultivated meat for human consumption, which is out of context, right? Even though sentence number 3 says the first UK applications for cultivated meat produced for humans remain under assessment, we are still not talking about anywhere about human consumption except in sentence number 4. So the entire focus, if you actually just stick to the tense approach, then the tenses would tell you that 1, 2, 3, and 5 make a coherent paragraph except sentence number 4, which talks about the past. If you go by the central theme approach, you would understand that even though we are talking about cultivated meat, we are talking about the previous UK government, and we are talking about human consumption, which hasn't been discussed till now. Okay, let's look at the answer. Yes, so sentence 4 is the odd one out. क्वेश्चन देखने में थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है क्योंकि कल्टिवेटेड मीट ऑलमोस्ट सब जगह यूज किया गया है. A lot of students came back and told me that they have marked option number 4 as their answer, but when 5 says it underscores the potential for new innovation, please understand that what is it? What is it? It refers to sentence number 3, which talks about the first UK applications for cultivated meat produced for humans remain under assessment with the Food Standards Agency. And this underscores the potential for new innovation, right? Remain under assessment. So this underscores the potential for new innovation. And hence, sentence number 4 is odd one out. Let's move ahead. Let's go to question number 5. Okay, let's read the question together. Part of the appeal for forecasting is not just that it seems to work, but that you don't seem to need specialized expertise to succeed at it. The tight connection between forecasting, all right, so we talk about forecasting, specialized expertise to succeed. The tight connection between forecasting and building a model of the world helps explain why so much of the early interest in the idea came from intelligence community. This was true even though the latter had access to classified intelligence. Okay, this was true. ये this क्या है? ये हमें पता करना होगा. One frequently cited study found that accurate forecasters' predictions, okay, we again have the word forecasters, predictions of geopolitical events when aggregated using standard scientific methods were more accurate than the forecasts of members of the US intelligence community who answered the same questions in a confidential prediction market. The aggregated opinions of non-experts doing forecasting have proven to be a better guide to the future than the aggregated opinions of experts. Now, this passage is a complicated one, but we would still be able to understand and crack this if we just focus on the central idea or the central theme of the paragraph. Now, in this question, sentence number 1, sentence number 4, and sentence number 5 discusses the general theme of how non-experts or forecasters, non-experts doing forecasting, right? Non-experts or forecasters without specialized expertise can make accurate predictions, often outperforming experts. Sentence 3 adds context by highlighting that this success occurs even when experts have access to classified information. So let's just focus on sentence number 1, 4, and sentence number 5. And then comes sentence number 3. देखो, sentence 1 ने बोला, part of the appeal of forecasting is not just that it seems to work, but that you don't seem to need specialized expertise to succeed at it. बोल रहा है कोई specialized expertise नहीं चाहिए succeed करने के लिए यहाँ पर हमें. Right? Then sentence number 4 ने बोला, one frequently cited study found that accurate forecasters, अब हमने बात करी है particularly किसकी, sentence number 4 में accurate forecasters की बात कर रहे हैं हम. ये रहा accurate forecasters. Prediction of geopolitical events when aggregated मतलब put together using standard scientific methods were more accurate than the forecasters of members of the US intelligence community who answered the same questions in a confidential prediction market. ठीक? And then 5 says the aggregated opinions, aggregated मतलब summed up opinions of non-experts doing forecasting have proven to be a better guide to future than the aggregated opinions of experts. देखो, so 1, 4, and 5. These three sentences are talking about the same thing. What is it talking about? It is talking about that how non-experts or forecasters without specialized experience can make accurate predictions. And they have outperformed experts. Sentence 3 adds context. Sentence 3 क्या बोल रहा है? This was true. Look at the words. Even though the latter had access to classified information. Accurate forecasters के पास classified information थी. फिर भी ऐसा हुआ कि उन्होंने क्या किया? उन्होंने better forecast किया. And then after that comes contrary to this sentence number 2. अब देखो sentence number 2 बचा है हमारे पास. Sentence number 2 को देखते हैं अब हम. Okay, this is sentence number 2. The tight connection between forecasting and building a model of the world helps explain why so much of the early interest in the idea came from intelligence community. What is sentence number 2 doing? What is sentence number 2 doing? Sentence number 2 shifts the focus from intelligence community's interest in forecasting models rather than continuing the discussion on the accuracy and the success of forecasters. This is kind of actually unrelated to the passage. अगर आप कंसोलिडेट करोगे तो बेसिकली सेंटेंस वन क्या कर रहा है? सेंटेंस वन इंट्रोड्यूस कर रहा है मेन आइडिया दैट फोरकास्टिंग इज अपीलिंग because it works even without requiring a specialized, expertise. Sentence number 5 builds on this idea. When it says building on this idea, sentence 5 highlights that non-experts can also, do this and outperform the experts. Sentence 4 provides support and claims that are made in sentence number 5. Now, out of all this, in this manner, so sentence number 1, guys, I'm sorry, I've written 5 before 4. I'll write it again. Sentence number 1, and then sentence number 5, then sentence number 4, and then sentence number 3. Make a coherent paragraph, right? While sentence number 2 just goes beyond what we are talking. Sentence number 2 is talking about intelligence community. It's talking about building a model for the world that helps explain. And hence, because sentence number 2 doesn't talk about how the forecasters who are not specialized in this work are better than forecasters who are, meant to do this, forecasters who have classified intelligence, doesn't discuss it. Sentence number 2 is the odd one out. Now, sentence number 1543, or even if the sequence is 1453, it's okay. They are not asking you the sequence. Don't bother about it कि मैम मैंने ये sequence बना दिया. Sequence में आपने 1453 लिखा है सॉल्व करते वक्त, या सीक्वेंस में 1543 लिखा है. इट्स ओके. It's not a parajumble question. Don't bog yourself down because of this. The point is, are you able to come down to the point that y is too irrelevant in this paragraph? Y is too out of context? If yes, then you have found out your answer. Okay? So the correct answer is sentence number 2. Let's come to the last question for today, which is sentence number 6. Sentence 6 says, okay, I'll have to pull down this toolbar because I'm unable to read the first sentence. To create a synapse, the neuron has specialized structures, often seen as tiny swellings, as its terminal end of the axon, where it stores the chemicals that are emitted to transmit a signal to the next neuron. Okay. So we have the word synapse, we have the word neuron. नेक्स्ट न्यूरॉन के बारे में बात कर रहा है, एमएच सिग्नल्स के बारे में बात कर रहा है, एक्सन के बारे में बात कर रहा है. इट सेज दिस फीटल वार्म अप. ओके, ये दिस क्या है, हमें पता करना है आगे. दिस फीटल वार्म अप एक्ट, the soldering of neural connections before the eyes actually function, is crucial for the performance of visual system. Okay, it is using the word crucial. It is talking about the visual system. It is talking about the eyes. It is talking about neural connections. Fabulous. The reasons for this pairing, कौन सी pairing, ये हमें पता करना होगा. The reasons for this pairing, and mind it, वो reasons बोल रहा है. For this pairing, back of synapses is a mystery, but synaptic pruning is thought to sharpen and reinforce the correct synapses while removing the weak and unnecessary ones. Neural connections between the eyes, we have underlined this before also. Neural connections between the eyes and the brain are formed long before birth, establishing the wiring and the circuitry that allow a child to begin visualizing the world the minute she emerges from the womb. During this rehearsal period, okay, what is this? We'll figure out. During this rehearsal period, synapses, points of chemical connection between nerve cells, and generated in great excess, only to be pruned back during later development. And I'll give me a moment to take the toolbar up. Yeah, between the nerve cells are generated in great excesses, only to be pruned back during later development. All right. Simple passage है, simple paragraph है. a good starting point है would be let's connect sentence number 5 and 3, क्योंकि 5 और 3 में ना दोनों में प्रूनिंग की बात करी है. देखो सेंटेंस नंबर 5 में यहाँ पे बोल रहा है ओनली टू बी प्रून्ड बैक ड्यूरिंग, राइट. और सेंटेंस नंबर 3 में भी वो बोल रहा है कि synaptic pruning. The reasons for this paring back of synapses is a mystery, but synaptic pruning is thought to sharpen. Right? यहाँ पे pruning की बात हुई है. So sentence 5 talks about the synaptic development that occurs during the early, period. Early period described in sentence number 4 and 2, the fetal warm-up act. है ना. और सेंटेंस नंबर 4 में भी उसने बोला है कि न्यूरल कनेक्शंस बनते हैं लॉन्ग बिफोर बर्थ, उस टाइम के बारे में बात कर रहा है. सो सेंटेंस आई रिपीट, सेंटेंस नंबर 5 टॉक्स अबाउट सिनेप्टिक डेवलपमेंट दैट अकर्स ड्यूरिंग द अर्ली पीरियड डिस्क्राइब्ड इन सेंटेंस नंबर 4 and 2. Sentence 5 describes how synapses are initially overproduced, a concept that sets up the next part of the process. What is it? Synaptic pruning. So, kind of, sentence number 5 and 3 kind of should make a mandatory pair. And similarly, sentence number 4 and 2 should make a mandatory pair. Right. Now, sentence number 3 continues to discuss this by offering an explanation of why synapses are pruned. क्यों, क्या रीजन दिया है? To reinforce the necessary connections and eliminate the weaker ones. Right? This helps to, retune the brain's wiring, ensuring that the important pathways are retained while the less useful ones are discarded. है ना, वहां लिखा है ना, while removing the weak and unnecessary ones in sentence number 3. देखो मेंशन किया है वहां पर. Now together 5 and 3 are going to tie with the broader purpose of neural wiring. एक्चुअली में हम इस पूरे पैराग्राफ में बात किस चीज की कर रहे हैं? हम बात कर रहे हैं न्यूरल वायरिंग के बारे में और रीवायरिंग के बारे में. प्रेजेंटेड कहां पर? इन सेंटेंस नंबर 2 when it says this fetal warm-up act, the soldiering of neural connections before the eyes actually function, is crucial to perform the visual system. So in sentence number 2, it emphasizes the creation of neural connections in the fetus, which is a preparatory stage, and that these connections are essential for future performance of the visual system. अगर ये नहीं होगा तो बच्चा देख नहीं पाएगा. Okay? Sentence number 4 sets the context of the paragraph. It mentions the formation of neural connections before birth, specifically focusing on the connections between the eyes and the brain. देखो, न्यूरल कनेक्शंस बिटवीन द आईज एंड द ब्रेन आर फॉर्म्ड. इस बात पे ध्यान दो. तो इस बात यहां पर ये कनेक्शन बनाना बहुत जरूरी है, मैंडेटरी पेयर बनाना बहुत जरूरी है. सो नाउ व्हाइल all of these sentences, which means 5 and 3 make a mandatory pair, 4 and 2 make a mandatory pair, right? Sentence number 1 does not make a mandatory pair anywhere. Sentence number 1 provides a technical description of synapse creation and function. It doesn't, or it does not look at the broader context set by sentence number 4, 2, 5 and 3. All these 4 sentences are focusing on brain development. Please notice this. These sentences, कौन से? 4, 2 and then 5, 3. ये वाले 4, 2 and then 5, 3. These sentences are focusing on what? These are focusing on brain development, especially related to vision, क्योंकि वो eyes के बारे में बात कर रहा है, and the process of synapse formation and pruning in a developmental context is what it is talking about. Sentence 1 में issue क्या है? Sentence 1 focuses on the structural aspect of synapse formation. वो बात कर रहा है स्पेशलाइज्ड स्ट्रक्चर्स की. उसने कैसे पता चला स्पेशलाइज्ड स्ट्रक्चर्स की बात कर रहा है? वो बोल रहा है उसके टर्मिनल एंड्स पे एक्शन होता है, इट स्टोर्स केमिकल्स, it transmits signals to the next neuron. Structure की बात कर रहा है वो, rather than the developmental or functional role that synapses play in early brain development, as discussed in the rest of the sentences, right? So 4, 2, 5, 3 should be the correct order of this paragraph, where sentence number 4 and 2 introduces and sentence number 5 and 3 builds upon this. इसीलिए मैंने सेंटेंस नंबर 5 में दिस सर्कल किया, सेंटेंस नंबर 4 में भी दिस सर्कल किया. सेंटेंस नंबर 2 में जो लिखा है दिस फीटल वार्म अप एक्ट, ये दिस फीटल वार्म अप एक्ट कहां से आया? सेंटेंस नंबर 4 में जहां पे लिखा है कि that allows a child to begin visualizing the world the minute she emerges from the womb. So this fetal warm up act ये यहां से आया है. This इस चीज को explain कर रहा है. If you stick to the noun pronoun antecedent approach, you would be able to make clear mandatory pairs in this question. And hence the sentence which is odd one out in this paragraph is sentence number 1. This is, or this should be, our answer. Yeah. Sentence 1 is the odd one out sentence. Right, guys? So first of all, what I want you to understand is when you solve a para-jumble question and when you solve an odd one out question, ideally the technique has to be the same. In an odd one out question, you first have to look at it with the point of view जैसे हम para-jumble के question में करते हैं. हम एक coherent paragraph का structure बनाते हैं. We figure out which sentence comes after what. Go ahead, do and solve this question like a typical para-jumble question. Figure out the sentences. कौन सा सेंटेंस किसके बाद आएगा या कौन सा सेंटेंस किसके पहले आएगा. सेंट्रल थीम के बारे में सोचो, किस चीज के बारे में बात कर रहा है. प्राइमरी कीवर्ड्स को अंडरलाइन करो. क्या वो कॉज एंड इफेक्ट कर रहा है, क्या वो सोल्यूशन प्रॉब्लम कर रहा है, क्या वो प्रॉब्लम सोल्यूशन फिगर आउट कर रहा है, क्या वो रीजन ट्रेस आउट कर रहा है. Is there a problem reason elaboration concept? Look at it and it will be very simple and easy for you. Once you make a coherent paragraph, this is not a difficult task to find out the sentence which is odd one out. Also, my suggestion to you is, at least in CAT exam, when you solve past year papers, please ensure that you do not stick to, सेम वर्ड अप्रोच. कभी कभी सेम तरीके के वर्ड्स जो होते हैं वो पैटर्न हमें दिखता है सेंटेंसेस में, लेकिन वो एक ट्रैप होता है. सो सिमिलर वर्ड्स sometimes act as a trap and you should be very, very careful with it. That's all for today. I hope I have been able to explain the questions to you. If you still have any doubts, you are free to message me in the chat section. And please do let us know what more should we solve in these live sessions. It will be very helpful for us. Thank you so much.